Hello, everyone. You have no idea how excited I am for today's lesson. You're finally going to do factoring. This is something you are going to use in all of your math classes. Factoring is a huge thing. You got to get good at it. You're going to be using it a lot. So if you open up what I posted, it is factoring day 5. And if we look at the kind of warm-up, we have the diamond problems that we have been kind of practicing a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of walk through one of those. If we just look at letter C, remember the idea is two numbers that multiply together to be the top number that also add up to be the bottom number. So factors of 15, we're thinking 15 and 1. We're thinking 5 and 3. And then those are the only factors. Now, in order to add up and be -8, it means both of them have to be negative. So we actually get a -5 and a -3. So we got that. And then we also have some FOIL problems, distributive property. Let's do 2b together. So remember, FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. So the first terms, x times x, gives you x squared. The outer terms, x times 5, gives you a positive 5x. The inner terms, -2 times an x is a -2x. And then our last terms, -2 times a positive 5 is -10. Combine like terms in the middle there, and you get x squared plus 3x minus 10. So distributive property. What we're doing today is kind of combining those ideas, the diamond problem and FOIL with standard form. So what it means to factor is we're changing something that was in standard form, like x squared plus 3x minus 10, into a factored form, which is something like this, an x minus 3 times x minus 5. So our answers will look like this. That factored form is also called intercept form. So before we really jump into it, let's look at these two type of examples. Let's look at C. If we multiply a 2x times an x, you get 2x squared. And then the 2x times the -5 gives you a -10. So what we want to do with the next set of problems is work backwards. We're going from 2x squared minus 10 to have 2x times x minus 5. So looking at a problem like C over here, you pull out the least common factor. So if we did the prime factorization for 2x squared, and you don't have to do this for every problem, but just something to see, the number 2 is already a prime number, so you just have 2. Then x squared is x times x. Then if we look at 14x, the number 14 is 2 times 7. Those are each prime numbers, so they can't be broken down any farther. And then we have an x. So if we're looking at what do they have in common, they have a 2, and they have an x. So what we're actually doing is pulling out or factoring a 2x. And then we're going to have stuff left inside. So we're thinking in our head, 2x times what will give you the 2x squared? And that's just x. And then we're thinking 2x times what will give you the 14x? And that's just 7. So our answer is 2x times x plus 7. So we factored it. When we get into problems like this, now it's a little bit more complicated, but if you got to be good at those diamond problems, this is going to be huge. So we have standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. We want to turn it into something that looks like this. In order to get that, the product is going to be whatever A times C is, and then the sum is going to be our B value. And when I'm saying A, C, and B, we're thinking standard form here. There's A and C, and then we got our B. Walking through, I'll do these first three, and then you'll do the rest on your own, and I'll be able to post some answer keys as well. But it's all about the diamond problem. It's like I've been tricking you into learning factoring all this time. So set up a diamond. You're going to take the number that's in front of the x squared times our c. So 1 times 12, that number goes here. Then our b term, positive 7, goes right there. So we're thinking in our head, two numbers that multiply together to be 12 that add up to be 7. Factors of 12. We got 12 times 1. We have 2 times 6. We have 3 times 4. Which of those add up to be 7? 3 and 4. The only kind of added twist here is since this is all have a 1x squared in front, we actually write it over a 1x. Because our factored answer is going to be something times something. And the way you get that is this highlighted area. You almost twist it on its side to where you have 1x and then a positive 3. So it's 1x plus 3, or x plus 3. And then the second one is a 1x plus 4. So you're getting a 1x plus 4. And you don't need to include the 1 out in front if you don't want. So we could get rid of that. And that's your answer. X plus 3 times x plus 4. When we look at this second one, we have a 3 out in front. So for the diamond, you're taking 3 times a negative 2, and that gets written over here. So a negative 6. Then you have this number in front, and it's just a negative 1. So a negative 1 is what's placed right there. So you're thinking to yourself, two numbers that multiply together to be negative 6 that add up to be negative 1. And with a little bit of thinking, you get a negative 3 and a positive 2. Because negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 plus 2 is a negative 1. Now, because it was all had a 3x squared in front, we write it over 3x. Now, any time that you have a number out in front like that, you always want to try and reduce it. So right here, negative 3 divided by 3x actually turns into negative 1 over 1x. Because negative 3 over 3 is just negative 1. And then on the right side, 2 over 3x doesn't simplify anymore. So our factors, we take this one, almost turn it on its side to where you have a 1x and a negative 1. So an x and a negative 1, x minus 1. And then over here, you have a 3x and a positive 2. So you have a 3x and positive 2. That's your answer. That's what you get when you factor it. Looking at the last one, a 1 out in front, 1 times a positive 24 is 24. Then we're looking at a negative 10. That goes right there. So two numbers that multiply together to be positive 24 that add up to be negative 10. In order to multiply to be a positive but add up to be a negative, they're both going to be negative. And the factors of 24 that would get you to 10 would be a -6 and a -4. Because it was a 1x squared out in front, they're just each over 1x. So there is no reducing. If we try and figure out then what those factors are, we kind of turn that on its side to where it's 1x minus 6, and then the 1x minus 4. That's your answer. Now, just to show you what all of this is doing, is let's take this one a little farther. Let's take our final answer and see how it became the one that we started with. So let's change up the color here. So distributing, this is FOIL. So you're doing x times x, x squared. Your outer x times a -4 is a -4x. Inner -6 times an x is a -6x. And our last -6 times a -4, negative times a negative is a positive, we're getting positive 24. Combining like terms, x squared, then a -4x minus 6x, which is the same as -4x plus a -6x, which is minus 10x, and then a plus 24. And there you go. X squared minus 10x plus 24, x squared minus 10x plus 24. So what we're doing is undoing the distributive property in order to write it into our factored form. So hope that helps. There's homework posted as well. Have a good day. Message me with any